Hi students, today we will discuss about inflammatory bowel disease. Before going to that, let's see a small diagram of the intestine. Here we can see this starting from this large intestine, small intestine. We can call this as transverse colon and descending colon, ascending colon. This is appendix part, rectum, anus and sigmoid colon. These are the parts which are involved in the IBD, means where we can see the two types of disease, that is ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Whereas in we can see that this rectal and sigmoid colon is involved in the ulcerative colitis, where in case of Crohn's disease there are many areas affected with the inflammation. Okay, this is a brief introduction about the intestine. From small age onwards we all know that about this. So we'll go into the inflammatory bowel disease condition. Okay, if we see about the inflammatory bowel disease, we can say that it is a chronic inflammatory disease where it is a protracted, means which lasts for a long period of time, where which we can more than we expected, and relapsing, which means deteriorated condition after the period of improvement from the disease. And in case of remitting course, means which is nothing but we are having the less severe symptoms. If we see here, generally it is of two types, that is Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. These are the two diseases involved in the IBD. Okay, if we go for the Crohn's disease, the main area affected in this is cecum and ileum, which we call that as a ileocecal area. This is the main area involved in the disease, that is about 40%. And there are other areas which involved in the Crohn's disease, means the second common affected area in the Crohn's disease is small intestine. If we take part of that, this is the small intestine, where we can see about 30 to 40% of the cases. In this we can see the inflammation in segments, like segments we are seeing the inflammation, which we call that as a skip lesions. We'll call this as a skip lesions. We can only find these in the Crohn's disease. We won't see any skip lesions in the ulcerative colitis. Okay, what is the third most affected area we are observing in the Crohn's disease, means in this condition where the skip lesions are occurred in the large intestine, that is about 20%, and they can referred as a Crohn's colitis. And finally the majority of the cases are observed in the perianal region. Okay, if we can see here, so the third most affected area is large intestine, where we can see these are the skip lesions like segments. 20% of the area is, we can call that as a Crohn's colitis, and the small majority cases is, we can see there is a perianal region, that is mostly about less than 10%. These are the typical characteristics. The most typical characteristics involved in this is skip lesions. Okay, what are the four most common areas affected, means once again we'll repeat that. First one is cecum and ileum. This is the first one, major part, that is about 40%. Second one, this is small intestine. We can see segments like skip lesions, that is about 30%. And the third one, large intestine, about 20%. We call that as a chronic colitis. And the fourth one, which is nothing but perianal region, which is less than 10%. These are the most common affected areas. Okay, if we go for the ulcerative colitis, it mainly represents with the inflammation of the rectal and sigmoid colon. We can see here, and it is about 40 to 50%, which we can refer that as a proctitis. And if we observe in this, the most affected area is rectal sigmoid area. And the characteristics what we are seeing in this is inflammation can spread. What is the characteristics we are observing in the Crohn's disease, means skip lesions. What in case of ulcerative colitis, the characteristics we are observing is inflammation can spread from the rectal sigmoid area up to the, this is the descending colon, which we already seen, means the inflammation from the rectal sigmoid area, it goes to the descending colon, that is where it can occur about the 30 to 40% of the ulcerative colitis cases can observe, and this is termed as a left-sided colitis. If the inflammation spread far enough, that means it reaches the transverse colon, this is a transverse colon. If from this it spread to the transverse colon, means which last about 20% of the cases, and this is known as extensive colitis. So if we see this is the major characteristics in both of them is Crohn's disease is stipulations, and ulcerative colitis is spreading of the inflammation from the distal part to proximal part. Okay, once again I will repeat about Crohn's ulcerative colitis. We are seeing the inflammation in the rectal sigmoid area, and it spread to the descending colon, which about 30 to 40%, we can call that as a left-sided colitis, and then from this it spread to the transverse colon, which is of 20% cases are seen, we can call that as a extensive colitis. This is about the ulcerative colitis. And if we go for the signs and symptoms, we can observe diarrhea, rectal bleeding, abdominal pain, fever, weight loss, vomiting, cramps and muscle spasm. These are the signs and symptoms we can observe both in the ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Okay, we can see the differences or similarities what we are observing in the both the conditions. Means in case of we can differentiate from the gender, incidence, smoking, onset, location, pathology, histology and complications. Okay, based on gender, if we see about gender, both genders are affected in ulcerative colitis, where in case of Crohn's disease mostly it occurs in the females than males. In case of incidence, if we see 2 to 19 cases per 1 lakh per year is observed, and in case of Crohn's disease 2.1 to 20 per lakh per year is observed. In case of smoking, ulcerative colitis, if we see in ulcerative colitis, it is a protective factor, and whereas in Crohn's disease it is an aggravative factor. Means smoking increases the condition of the Crohn's disease. Onset is it is same for both the conditions, which is 15 to 40 years. In case of location, it ulcerative colitis occurs in distal colon, and this occurs in distal ileum and cecum. If we go for pathology, if we see in case of ulcerative colitis, it is a continuous inflammation, where inflammatory lesions where it progresses from the distal to proximal colon. In case of Crohn's disease, it is a discontinuous patchy gut inflammation with skip lesions. And if we go for histology of both the conditions, so we can see it is a superficial inflammation, and we can see in Crohn's disease it's a transmural inflammation, means which is nothing but it goes through the all layers of the colon. Transmural means it goes through all layers of the colon. And if we go for the complications, we can see the severe bleeding, colon cancer, rupture of bowel, and in case of Crohn's disease we can observe stenosis, abscess formation, fistulas and colon cancer. This is about the slight differences or similarities what we are seeing in the IBD. Okay, if we see deep into the complications, there are both the systemic and local complications. Okay, local complications involves in case of ulcerative colitis, the colon cancer, rupture of bowel, that is nothing but perforation or massive hemorrhages, they are the local complications. In case of Crohn's disease, colon cancer, stenosis, abscess formation, fistulas and lymphadenopathy, these are the major which we discussed earlier in the similarities. Okay, next we will see what are the systemic complications occurred in the IBD. IBD involves both in case of both ulcerative and chronic Crohn's disease, we can see conjunctivitis, iritis, mouth ulcers, fatty liver, liver abscess, venous thrombosis, erythema and joint arthritis, etc. These are the systemic complications involved in this disease. If we see if we see pathophysiology in IBD, which includes both the disease having the same pathophysiology. So here we can see these are the intestinal epithelial cells, and we can also see our M cells. This is M cell. These M cells, which are the part of the Peyer's patches, and here we can also see the mucosal layer. Here I marked it as a mucosal layer, and also these are the mucosa. You can find these mucosa, which is a fluid, and they have the bacteria on the surface area. Okay, if we see the Paneth cells, these are the Paneth cells where it secretes the antimicrobial peptides. These Paneth cells secretes the antimicrobial peptides, and which keeps the microbes in the intestine. Okay, here we can also see the goblet cells. Here these are the goblet cells which produce and secrete the mucus. We already know that where there is a mucosal layer, definitely there will be a goblet cell for the secretion of the mucus. Next, if we observe that there are some genetic and environmental factors which predispose to the IBD. These genetic and environmental factors causing the IBD. How it causing means, what are the genetic factors involved in this means antimicrobial peptides or autophagy, handling of bacteria and cytokines. These are the genetic factors involved. And what are the environmental factors means diet, stress, microenvironment or infections, NSAIDs, smoking or use of the antibiotics. These are the factors. These two factors leads to the following scenario where M cells involves in the sampling of the antigen. Here we can see these M cells involved in the antigen sampling in the lumen, and then there is we can see there is a translocation of the microbial products or microbial peptides, which activates them. This will activate the immune cells, and so here and also other than this, it also activates the macrophage, that is antigen presenting cell. So after activation of this antigen presenting cell, alternately this occurs in the large intestine mainly. Here we can see the impaired barrier function. This impaired barrier function is due to this genetic and environmental factors. This can also leads to gradually this impaired barrier function also leads to the translocation of the microbial products, which in turn also causes the immune cell activation. In other hand, if we see here these macrophages, that is nothing but antigen presenting cell, it activates the CD4 T cells. Means after the CD4 T cell activation, these macrophages will after activation of this CD4 T cells, it further stimulates this macrophages, and resulting in the stimulation and activation of the macrophages. Here the both CD4 and these macrophages together start releasing the cytokines. Is it clear? Here from translocation of microbial products, after this the translocation of the microbial products, we can see the macrophages, that is nothing but the APC, that will process into these bacteria, and these antigen will present to the activation of the CD4 T cells. These CD4 T cells further stimulates and activates the macrophages. So these stimulated macrophages and this CD4 T cells, they further start releasing the cytokines including TNF alpha, interleukin 1 and interleukin 6. So this continuous releasing of the cytokines results in the inflammation that leads to the chronic inflammation, and which in turn leads to the systemic and local complications which is associated with the IBD. Means first it starts to cause the systemic and local complications, and in turn which leads to the IBD. Okay, this is about the pathophysiology. If we go for the diagnosis, the first one is full blood count, which is nothing but the complete blood count. In this we can observe for the anemia or malabsorption, like deficiency of vitamin B12 or iron deficiency. Why we are going for this means because of the damage of the intestinal mucosa, we have to go for the checking of the malabsorption. And if you go for the blood chemistry means if we observe any decrease in the albumin, because this decrease is due to the inflammation and enteropathy, so we have to check the albumin levels. And the third one is CRP, nothing but a C-reactive protein. If these levels would be up, and this indicates the inflammation, so we have to check the C-reactive protein levels. And the MCS means nothing but a microscopic culture sensitivity test. We can do this by using a stool examination to rule out the bacterial and parasite involvement, such as C. difficile infection or any IBD suspicion. So for this we can go for the culture sensitivity test. And fifth one, nothing but endoscopy, which is a main test, means a standard test for this. This is to check the architecture and structure of the colon. How we can differentiate that is ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease means, in ulcerative colitis, if we do endoscopy, we can see the erythema appearance or continuous lesions or superficial inflammation and exudates and pseudopolyps are observed in the ulcerative colitis. If we see in the Crohn's disease, we can observe the skip lesions, pseudopolyps and granulomas are observed in the Crohn's disease. This is a major difference we observe in the endoscopy. And if we go for the biopsy is needed for the ulcerative colitis condition, where we can observe the crypt abscess and crypt atrophy, and we can see the symptoms or signs of the inflammation. So and the seventh one is nothing but radiology. This is important for the Crohn's disease because it is necessary or it is essential for the staging of the Crohn's disease, and barium test is performed in this condition. So these are the investigations what we are doing in the IBD. To confirm this, we can observe the if we see ulcerative colitis, by what we can confirm is if there is a presence of chronic diarrhea more than 4 weeks and there is an evidence of acute inflammation on endoscopy, and if you see the chronic changes on biopsy, this is a confirmation for the ulcerative colitis. And if you go for the Crohn's disease, endoscopic findings and imaging studies and compatible clinical history is the confirmation sign for the Crohn's disease in the IBD. This is the general treatment involved in the IBD, that is loperamide 2 mg per 6 hours, and which is indicated for diarrhea, and diphenoxylate, prednisone or prednisolone, or means any corticosteroids or sulfasalazine and azathioprine. These are the drugs mainly involved in the IBD. If we want to see separately, means for ulcerative colitis individually and Crohn's disease means, okay, first general measures include in the ulcerative colitis is proper balanced diet and supplementation of iron, vitamins and minerals is recommended. In case of drugs means, first antidiarrheal drugs like loperamide is used to reduce the diarrhea, and IV corticosteroids, that is prednisolone, is preferred to reduce inflammation. Sulfasalazine or mesalamine or etc. is used to reduce inflammation. These are the drugs used for the ulcerative colitis. If surgery is recommended, it is required in approximately 10% of patients, not for all, means based on the condition of the patient it is suggested. And in this surgery it involves a complete or partial removal of the large intestine and rectum or dissection of the rectum. There are several types of surgeries to be carried out to get the complete relief. So if we go for the this is about the ulcerative colitis. If we go for the treatment of the Crohn's disease, here also we have to maintain the diet and nutrition. And drugs what mostly we are using is anticholinergic agents and loperamide, diphenoxylate, which are used to relieve the cramps and diarrhea. In advanced cases, corticosteroids are also used, that is a prednisone, which is a 40 to 60 mg per day, and maybe used to reduce the diarrhea, fever or cramps or inflammation, etc. Sulfasalazine and other related compounds to that are used to control the inflammation, and certain immunomodulators like azathioprine, which is used to helpful for the reducing the symptoms. And if we go for surgery, it is the last option, and it is performed in case of frequent obstruction associated with the conditions or failure of the drug therapy. Here, if we see in this, the removal of the diseased part may relieve the symptoms in 50% of the patients, while rest may be needed in the as a second priority. This is about the treatment of the Crohn's disease.